we are going to do a thought experiment, and I'm going to ask you to practice your best empathy skills today. And for the folks who are volunteering on the stream, we're going to ask you to kind of just be the voice, to throw some ideas out and some questions out, and tell us what you see from the perspective that I'm going to give to you, right? That's what the class is. And so everybody's going to do this. But we'll have some folks on the stream, but everybody's going to participate in the same way. Okay. And I'm going to give you the perspective. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through Black history in the United States as if that history happened to white people. So we're going to reverse things. So I'm going to walk you through Black history in the United States as though it happened to white people, and we're going to see what we can learn. All of the data that we draw on today that are up on the stream, all of the stories, all of the historical moments, everything I say today is true to the best to which things can be true. But everything is reversed. So what appears to be when I talk about white people, and by the way, if you're volunteering on the stream, make sure you're going to need, if you're volunteering, make sure the stream is on and make sure that right now you can hear everything that I say, right? So when I refer to white people, I'm telling the story that actually happened to Black people in the United States. And once again, we're only talking in the United States, and we're fundamentally talking about white people and Black people, because I just need to narrow the storyline down to two particular groups, or else we're going to be all over the place. It's not possible to do a thought experiments. So when I talk about white people today in this thought experiment, what I'm actually, I'm using the story, the actual story and the data of Black people as it truly occurred. And when I talk about Black people today, I'm talking about the people on top. I'm talking about white people. I'm using data and I'm using the story of white people. Okay. So I'm just reversing everything. So all the slides that I'm going to show you today, different data points. Let's say if I look at a point for unemployment and you see white unemployment rate and Black unemployment rate. The white unemployment rate is actually the Black unemployment rate, the true Black unemployment rate today. And the Black unemployment rate on the slide is actually the true white unemployment rate today. Now, I'm going to keep walking you through this so that you're really ready to go. So you're really clear. You just got to keep your mind going in that way, right? And I'm going to take you into this lecture so that you have an opportunity, you take an opportunity to stand in the shoes of these different groups of people just by changing the face, so to speak, of the group of different groups of people. Okay. So this is really about empathy, because empathy is about standing in other people's shoes and seeing what they see and feeling what they feel. Just seeing it. That's all. Like that's the fundamental piece of empathy. And sociology is the foundation of sociology in many ways is empathy. And so we're going to go that route. Okay. It's not sympathy, right? It's just standing in another's shoes and getting a sense of how they see and experience the world from their position. So I see an experience from this position, or I see an experience from this position. And all we're doing is like flipping these roles, doing this race reversal in that way. Okay. So do we have all the peeps on? Who do we have on the screen so I can see where we're at? And
you guys can turn your cameras on.
Yeah. Okay. So hang on. So we have Zane, we have Kendrick. And do we have anybody else?
Nope, I have some more emails. I'm about to send them the link, so maybe in the next 2 to 3 minutes we'll have 2 more students.
All right, man. Okay, awesome. So listen, Zane and Kendrick, you get where we're at, right? You get the storyline, you get how we're rolling with this thing. Okay. So why don't you have Twitch on, and we're going to bring a couple more people on. So, hey, by the way, it'd be really nice if we had somebody, you don't have to be an American to do this, right? So if you're not an American, it'd be actually really nice to have somebody who's participating in class today who is not from the United States, who is not a US citizen, because it'll be really nice to get a different perspective. So that's that other, right? Anybody else, but it will be really nice to get somebody who is not a U.S. citizen. Okay, cool. All right. So why don't I just get a drink of water, and I'm going to start, because this is going to rock and roll. So what's going to happen, y'all, is I'm going to talk for maybe about like 15 minutes. And I'm gonna start with this story, and we will. Wait, hang on, I'm gonna have to. Hang on. Can you just? I really have to wait. I'm gonna have to put people in their places, right? So first off, why don't we just do this? Kendrick, for sure, you are gonna take the position. You can change your screen name. You are gonna take the position of the white person. We're going to call you the oppressor. Okay. So pardon me, of the black oppressor, right? So you're going to take the position of the black person in my story, the black group, and that's the oppressor. So you could change your name, if you could, to Kendrick-oppressor. Cool. That'll just help me. Zane, you're going to take the position of the white person, of a white person in this story, somebody whose family experienced all of the things that white people experienced in my story. And you're going to take the position, we're going to call you the oppressed. So Zane-oppressed. So, or / however you want to do that. Okay. And we have Sam의 Cameron. You can turn your mic on, or your camera on real fast. Let me see where you're going to go. Hey, by the way, this is a really cool class. This is a really, really cool class. So I'm very much looking forward. Hey, Sam의, can you turn your camera on so we can see you? And there you go. All right, connecting to audio. And
Hello.
All right, man. Yo, what's up? All right, so listen, we're going to put you on. We're just, until we get one more person, it'd be really nice if we got one more person, Joyce. So just work it. Sam의, you're going to go with, did you hear me tell the story, what you're doing?
A little bit. My connection was kind of going in and out. Can you?
Okay, so listen, man, I'm gonna rock it again. So what I'm doing is this is a race reversal. So I'm going to tell the story of Black history as though it happened to white people, and the story of white history as though it happened to Black people. Okay?
Gotcha.
So everything is going to be reversed. Everything I talk about is true. All the data are true. The stories are true, etc. And Sam의, you can change your name to Sam의 / oppressor. So that's what you're going to be, because you are part of the dominant Black group who really did all of the things, took care of everything, man. Okay. And Joy, we're going to get one more person on here who's going to join Zane's team. Okay. Got it? Whoever that is, and however that is. All right, man. Find somebody. All right. Listen, y'all. So Jeff, let's start. So so once again, we're reversing our racial history, right? And so this is one of these reenactors, because, Black people, they fought this Civil War, they created slavery, they came here. So go to the next slide. Let's just start right here. So here's what happened, basically, right? Black people first went to the Americas, and they did a lot of horrible things in the Americas, but for whatever reason, they decided they were going to start building ships, and they follow this real little green arrow, and they discover the Americas, so-called discover the Americas. Okay. And they were in search of gold, because that's what happened. Everyone's just crazy. Black people just crazy about gold. I don't know what it is, but all throughout Africa, people are like, all they just want gold, man. And they just were exploring, and they went left and they went right and they went east, north, south, west. But in the end, they end up in the Americas, and the Black explorers they did some pretty terrible things. And what happened was, because go to the next slide and then we'll come back. For example, they genocided Native Americans. So there was this horrific genocide of indigenous peoples in the Americas, and that was committed by people of African ancestry. So if you can go back one really fast. And so then what happened was they decided, hey, we've got all this land in the Americas and we need labor. We got to figure out where we're going to get the labor. And so they decided, hey, let's go up to Europe. We're going to get labor in Europe. So they went up and they found they were able to, capture Europeans and all of their many different tribes. And then they brought the Europeans over to the Americas as slaves. So Black people had these white slaves, and they got fabulously wealthy off of the labor of the the white slaves. And so, it's just this domination, man. We just see this. This is just the nature of the history of Africa, and certainly parts of Africa. It's all different, right? Africans were fighting lots of wars throughout history and so on. But in the end, they're the ones that were able to figure out to make things happen and bring white people over to the Americas and enslave them. So go to the next slide. So we see historically speaking, lots of images like this. Here's a white slave ship packed with white slaves that Africans figured out, hey, we can get as many as possible. And, maybe 2 out of every 3, or at least 1 out of 2, and sometimes 2 out of every 3 will die before they ever reach the Americas. But, nonetheless, we're going to pack these human beings in. But Black people didn't, Zane, just so you know, it's pretty clear. Black people did not consider your people to be fully human. And so it didn't matter if you died. We're going to bring you over and we're going to just work you, and in many cases, work you to death. Okay, so next slide. Let me show you a couple things. So here's one of the earliest photos, because, photography really only emerged in the later part of the mid 19th century. And here's one of the early photos of white slaves. These are kids in the fields picking cotton for their Black slave masters, white kids, right? As you will note, they're all white, and picking cotton for their Black slave masters. And we can go to the next slide. Here's some white slaves from very early on. And you see, the poverty is just horrific, right? As you might imagine, no rights, very little rights. We really had to stay in the lane, stay in the pot. Everything, you've all heard about slavery. We know how it is, but this was really a particular. We've had slavery throughout human history, and white people have been enslaving themselves in different ways. We saw slavery in Europe, and we saw slavery in Africa to different degrees. But really, we saw nothing like this till Africans found this way to develop this transatlantic slave trade and have these chattel slaves from whom they could make fabulous wealth and riches. And in the meantime, so if you go to the next slide, in the meantime, so everyone's following here, right? We're working on this thought experiment. We're reversing. So I could talk all about slavery, but I'm not going to right now because I want to keep going about the stories of slavery. But here's a photo of these Black businessmen in New York City in 1859, just super wealthy because because the vast majority of white people were slaves. And so there were some white people that were not slaves, and there were some white people who were free, and there were some white people, a few here and there, who actually owned slaves because they had found a way to purchase their freedom, and most of them were not fully white, but they were white and Black and all sorts of things. But the vast majority, there's no way. The vast majority of white people were slaves. And go back to the slide, and not all Black people, right, we're wealthy like this. These just happened to be the wealthiest Black businessmen in New York City in 1859, right? Look at the photos from the National Negro Business League Executive Committee. So these are some really wealthy people, but Black people ran this country, y'all. Like black people ran this country. And here's another slide. This is from 1860. Here's just a middle-class black family. Just your average middle-class black family, right? So you saw the photos of white slave families, and we see the photos of white poverty, and I can show you more of those, but we don't need it. But here's the flip side. This is middle-class black family. So, Kendrick and Simney, these are your ancestors. You know what I mean? And they did quite well, and they're rocking and rolling quite well. And then what happened was things started to fall apart a little bit, because there was a segment of the country was sort of split economically. And there was the industrial part of the country, of the economy in the North, and then the agricultural part of the economy in the South. And the two were constantly battling over each other, economically speaking, right? There was just a lot of tension. And the South was increasingly wanting to get more and more powerful and getting more and more powerful. And the North was also feeling like, you know what, this institution of slavery is actually a problem. And it's actually enriching the South in a way that is not good for the larger country, the larger union as a whole. And so there was a split. And the southern part of the country, show the next slide, broke off. And we had a civil war. And so here is, the group of black people, and this is the Louisiana Native Guard in 1861, protecting our heritage, protecting Southern heritage, and really protecting the way of life and protecting the institution of slavery, because these people believed that white people were not fully human and deserved to be slaves and needed to be slaves. And there was no way that they were going to get that up. And why would you ever do that? And so we get this war, a horrific, one of the most brutal and bloody civil wars in human history, that was largely fought to protect the institution of slavery, to hold it down very clearly. Okay? And meaning that slavery for the vast majority of black people in this part of the country, and half of the country, slavery was more important than the Union, than having a country that really came together. Okay? Cool? Next slide. So the end of the war, the folks who were anti-slavery, they won. The black people who were anti-slavery. And, they won the war and they won the battle. And the first thing that they had to do, of course, because now you've had this brutal civil war, the country's been torn apart, the economy has not been functioning in full force for many years, and we got to pull the country back together. And the first thing they do is start the Reconstruction process, meaning reconstructing the society and reconstructing the economy and the political sector. But in the process of doing that, what that really means is not giving something to white people, the former slaves, who are not free, by the way. So the white slaves, the institution of slavery is over with. So white people are free. And finally, right? But they're not really free, because what happens is there were a lot of promises of what people were going to give to white people. So like Zane, your people, your ancestors, let's say, were promised also 40 acres and a mule by the government. They were going to, offer opportunities to get slaves back on their feet and start integrating slaves into the economy. But here's the problem. Even in the North, black people did not fully believe, or did not believe that white people were fully worthy of being integrated in society. It's not like there wasn't racism in the North. There was extreme racism in the South, because black people in the South, it was seen that black people were closer to animals than closer to humans. But in the North, same thing. It wasn't like, hey, we're going to open our arms to black people. Or to white people. There was a lot of racism, right? So the issue among black people is like, well, we're going to stop slavery, but that doesn't mean we're going to bring white people into our world. So there were a lot of promises that, well, what we'll do is we got to get slaves going again, and they're off the plantation. They're not working. We're going to give them 40 acres and a mule, or any number of other things. But then black people, one by one, rescinded all of those possibilities. Black people were just like, fuck, man. It's just like, you'd think that black people would have had just maybe just the humanity to do something for white people that would just like overcome centuries of slavery, but they didn't. That's just how it was. And so white people, for most white people, certainly in the South, post-slavery conditions stayed the same. And for many people, they actually got worse. They actually got worse. And, you know, I talk about this sometime, like during slavery, at least white people, when you're a slave, you're at least somebody's property. And so you at least have some value there. In fact, most slaves were pretty valuable because it costs a fair amount of money to have a slave in the United States. And so, you know, you are at some level going to protect your property. You know, if you're a slave, if you spend a lot of money on a white slave, at some level, you're gonna try to protect that person because they have value to you and they're producing for you. And you, meaning Black society, got fabulously wealthy off of the blood and the sweat of white slaves. So, you know, you kind of protect that. But after slavery, there were no protections because the goal was we just got to keep Black people or white people in place. We got to really hold them in place, and we're still going to exploit them because the politicians in Washington, D.C., the one thing they did very, very clearly was give all the land and all the power back to the Black politicians, gave it all back to Black people in the South who had owned all of the means of production, who had controlled everything, who created the institution of slavery and held the institution of slavery in place. The Black politicians in Washington, D.C. gave all that power right back to Black people. They didn't offer to disseminate it among white people and slaves and build a sense of equality. They just gave it right back to Black people to get the country going again. And so this Reconstruction is really just kept all these white people poor. Nothing changed. Nothing changed. And so here, we had this, they developed this kind of sense of, go to the next slide. I'm going to do this a little bit out of order, but there's like Jim Crow and this laws and forced segregation. And the idea is we're going to have these separate societies. And we might call them separate but equal, but that's nonsense because Black people, you came up with these euphemisms, right? Well, they're separate. We're going to keep white people separate, but they're equal. Like bullshit. They're not separate and equal. And you just were saying that nonsense, man. That wasn't it. That wasn't part of it. And then you develop these really clear lines of demarcation. So you never had to interact with white people. You wanted to keep it really straight. So there were white communities and there were Black communities. There were white laws and there were Black laws. And there were the white people, and this is later in the 60s. You just see, it's just like, this is just the faces, endless faces of Black people whose ancestors, of white people whose ancestors had gone through all of this. Okay? So now let's keep going a little bit. So we see photos like this, in the early part of the 20th century. You think about white people, the former slaves, and even white people that weren't slaves, just poor. Y'all just incredibly poor. And so we see lots of photos like this, just malnourishment and, just an immense amount of poverty, right? And then Black people, of course, because the key is you all don't want to give anything up at all. You want to hold the power. You want power in the hands of your people, and you're not going to let that go. And more Black people are coming over from Africa, and more Black people who come over, you open up things up for them. You offer opportunities for them to be part of this society and this power society that you have in the system and so on, but not white people, not slaves, former slaves or ancestors of slaves. You keep them in their place, but all these other Black people are coming over and doing awesome, and they're making their way and they're doing quite well. But you need to make sure still that you keep Whitey in his place. You got to do that because these former slaves, they're dangerous. And so you're just going to make sure that no matter what, you just find ways to hold them down. And you're going to do that because you've had centuries of believing that white people are inferior and white people are bad. So then you do this thing, you start the Black Ku Klux Klan, right? All these guys. So these guys, they're all Black because, black people had to decide, hey, we need our own police force. We need our own way to really hold these white people in place. We need to make sure that these white people don't get any further than they imagine they can. And so, we're going to start these. Here's a Black Klan member, right? I mean, it's a guy. This dude is just like built. His whole ideology is just built around racism, just racism and hatred of white people. I'm like, motherfucker, what did white people ever do to you? But it doesn't matter. You look at that face and it's just hatred of white people. And so this whole thing, this Klan organization exists. And the balls here, take a look at this photo. Here is a shot of KKK members, the black, obviously, KKK members marching in Washington, D.C. in 1925. And you know what they're marching for? They're marching for the right to step on the necks of white people, to be able to take law in their own hands. I mean, the audacity, the gall of black people to put white slaves through all of this and then to turn around and march right to the White House, my friends, right past the White House. Nobody stopped them. 25,000 KKK members came from all over, mostly the South, not entirely the South. There were many from Pennsylvania and West Virginia and Maryland and also New Jersey and New York, walking right down Constitution Avenue, right in the open, man. We know what they're about. Killing, but here's a slide. And when white people got out of hand, I can't show you this slide because Twitch, but you see the ropes there? These are white people who have been hung by black crowds. It's like, black people, man. Like, what the fuck? Seriously? It's like, it's like almost an institution of lynching of white people, just to make sure that white people know their place and they hold their place and they're not going to go anywhere and they're not going to do anything. It's almost evil. Black people never apologize. A few did, obviously, but it's a whole institution built upon black racism and hatred of white people. And let me show you, I'm about to open it up to have a conversation. And by the way, some of you who have been, if you're watching, I still want to get one more person on the screen with Zane. So if you could call in, Kendrick and Simney have got the black side down, but it'd be really nice. You don't have to be white. You could be anywhere. I just want to get more views, more perspectives into this. So if you want to jump on, it'd be really lovely to have one more person who's ready to jump on the stream. Yeah. Hey, Joy's struggling for some reason. Y'all, we need one more volunteer. Hang on. I'm just going to look right in the camera. I'm going to like one of those television. And Jesus says, let it be you. All right.
You 100% should have done Uncle Sam.
What's that?
A pastor.
Hey, dude, I'm starting my own church. I don't know. Church of the Greenery. How about that?
Church of the Greenery.
All right, we need one more person. Seriously, let's go. Bring somebody on. It'd be really nice. Okay, here, let me walk you through just a few final slides, and then we're gonna hop on. We're gonna bring you all out. Ready? Here's one. So let me show you this. Every time. Hang on. Take it off for a second. I just want to talk. I want to just. Black people, y'all had many opportunities to make things right. Like after slavery, you could have really just said, hey, we lost. Let's just make it happen. We're going to just bring white people in. Even if we don't make them equals, we can at least pretend. Let's give them something. We put them through a lot. We got fabulously rich off of them. We killed so many of them. We genocided Native American peoples and continued to do that right up through the end of the 19th century. Let's have just a little bit of I don't know, just sense about ourselves. We didn't. One really important time was after World War II. And this was one of those times that for me, I feel like everything could have been different. These relationship between white people and Black people and just the inequality could have just absolutely changed, and it didn't. And that was every soldier that fought in World War II had the option to be a participant in what was called the GI Bill of Rights. And the GI Bill of Rights, didn't matter what background you were, white, Black, brown, Chinese, Mexican, Native American, completely irrelevant. But every soldier had the opportunity to benefit from the GI Bill of Rights. And what the GI Bill of Rights did two fundamental things. One, it gave people low interest to no interest, former GIs, former soldiers, low interest to no interest loans to buy their own home. Okay? Because the federal government was starting to build out these suburbs and build homes, and we need to do something with these GIs, and we need to get our economy back moving again. And so we're going to offer no interest to low interest loans for these former soldiers to come back and build their own homes. And number two, we're going to offer people free education if you were a soldier. Now, Black people, you all were in charge. So you made all this happen, right? Because you're running the whole show. And you had your opportunity right here because there was about 1.2 million white soldiers who fought in World War II, who were eligible for the GI Bill. 1.2 million. Had you offered them the opportunity to take advantage of the GI Bill of Rights, meaning low interest to no interest loans and free education, including college education and technical schools, right? And opening up factories and other businesses to them, right? Had you done that, there would be virtually very little race inequality today, but you didn't. You fucking didn't. You didn't. Black people, you know what you did? You said, you know what? Most of these GI Bill of Rights, the vast majority, we're going to give them to other Black people and we're going to cut white people out. And the way you did that is by saying, we're going to let people decide. We're going to let local committees, state and local committees decide how they were going to disperse these. And let me give you just a couple examples of how this worked out. So one is that in the New York City, New Jersey area, there were 67,000 beneficiaries of the GI Bill of Rights, right? 100 of them were given to Black people. 67,000, 100 were Black people. It's like an estimated something like 8,000 or 9,000 just in that area. And then pardon me. So this is 100 of the beneficiaries were white. It's like you didn't even give them away. You didn't even give white people an opportunity in any way, shape, or form, right? 12%. So 12% of the population. So go back. 12% of the population in that area were Black. And it's estimated more than 7,000 people actually lost those benefits. White people lost the benefits. It's like Black people, you couldn't even do it. You had your opportunity. And then the South and all throughout the United States, dude, over 1 million white beneficiaries could have benefited and didn't. And things would be completely different today. But Black people, y'all just decided, no, screw that. We're just going to keep this all for ourselves. So I want to show you a couple final slides, and then we'll go. So look at these. This is a white family. This is 1950. This is white poverty, y'all, right? White poverty. This is what we see. And and compare it to this way. Here's your average Black family. The Black soldier that goes off to war, comes back, gets a house, no interest loan house, moves into the house, is doing really well, goes off to college, becomes an engineer. Those two kids right there later go on to become doctors and lawyers and engineers, and everything is lovely. And they just see the world for themselves. And they, distrust white people or don't like white people or whatever the case is. But it's like, this is a whole world. Now, meanwhile, take a look at this shot, beautiful shot. This is like this white ideology. I mean, Black ideology. right? Because black people, y'all you just have this sense that anybody could make it if they want. Hey, white people, you could make it if you want. Just work harder. Do whatever you got to do. Anyone can be successful. This is the land of freedom. Look at us. Look at all these black women. They're just happy. Life is good for them. It's all fine, and then, go to this next slide. Here are these black guys who are just living life. These just black dudes, man, cool dudes. Life is good. And we know what it was like for white people. Not like that. A few, but not like that. Different story, different world. Okay? So let's talk. Why don't you all hop on the screens? You can turn your cameras on, and I just want to hear some things, right? What do you see? So we're going to stay in the role reversal, right? So what do we got? Ben, you're part of the oppressed group. Hang on, let me just see who we have. You can turn your cameras so we see it. I want to put your name up there, and you gotta take some side so I can see how to do that. So what do you see? What do you feel? What are you noticing? Right. And Rachel, why don't you take the oppressor group, just for why not, right? And what do you see? What are you noticing? What do you know? And what can you imagine about this story? Here's the story. What are you seeing? What are you feeling? What are you knowing as you're listening to this story and you're really hearing this story of what Africans did to Europeans in this land? And it continued on and on and on. And every opportunity that Africans had, that black people had to make amends, to build some level of equality, they didn't do it. And white people are endlessly just struck in this place. So what do you see? What do you got? Anybody can say something. Where you at? Kendrick, how is it to, let me ask you, how is it to hear that story? Or Simney, how is it? How is that?
It definitely feels like they were calculated steps out of fear and kind of discrimination and rooted hatred to keep white people at the bottom.
Hey, how's it feel to be a black guy? How is that for you?
I guess it's kind of like one of those situations where you really feel like ignorance is bliss. Like, yeah, like there's a large group of people who look like you and me who have done a lot of similar things out of hatred and prejudice. But if me as an individual isn't really thinking about it on a daily basis, I guess it's kind of like an out of sight, out of mind type of thing.
Yeah. Out of sight, out of mind. Okay. Somebody else? Anybody else? Zane, how about you, man? How is that for you? How is it to listen to that story?
It's kind of like realizing that with the role.
Wait, so you're gonna have to speak louder because your mic is way turned down. Okay.
It really showed me about like how they're working against the system to live the American dream.
So how's it feel? How's it feel for you as a white guy to hear that, to hear your history being told, finally being told in a sociology class?
Powerless against the system.
Yeah. So you're not feeling empowered by that story. Like you're feeling, yeah.
I'm fucking pissed, Sam.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pissed. They had so many opportunities to, at least help us out, but they just keep shoving us down in the dirt, and I hate it.
Yeah. So what do you see when you say like shoving down in the dirt? Like what are you seeing? What are you
like? They're treating us like second class citizens, not even second class, like animals at times.
So Kendrick, do you feel like that? Because you seem like a nice guy. Are you really treating him like how's that? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess as a black person in that society that we're talking about, it's more like we don't want to give up anything. And I think you kind of mentioned it earlier. It's like, we are at this point, before the war where, we are using the whites as slaves to, bring prosperity and wealth to, the South. And then all of a sudden, through this war, we're, basically forced to give up this power. And now it's like, now that we've lost kind of that kind of free labor and that, all that power, that system that had us at the top, we really kind of just don't want to give anything away now. Like we don't want to, it's kind of
So
weird.
you're feeling like you don't want to give anything away.
Yeah, basically.
Is that what? Yeah. How about somebody else? Anybody? Rachel, how about you, man? What are you noticing? What are you seeing? What are you imagining?
It's kind of like what everyone was saying. I don't know. I feel like if I was putting myself in their shoes, or if I am playing their role right now, you just feel very powerless against everyone. You just feel like everyone's kind of against you, and like the whole system's against you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the whole system is people.
Mm-hmm.
So when you see like Kendrick and Simney, well, when you see Kendrick and Simney, and how do you see them? I mean, they're like, they weren't around when slavery happened. So,
Yeah, I feel like it's not like personal blame. It's people can be individually good people, but it's hard to separate history at times.
yeah. Like your family, what's your, like, you can imagine like how's your family tell the story of your family's history, right? In this, the way we're telling it, how's your family tell the story?
How's my family tell the story?
The way we're talking about it right here, you're part of this white oppressed your ancestors were slaves. How are they telling the story? Mm-hmm. Think about that. Ben,
I don't know.
just hang on a second. Ben, how are they telling the story? How's your family telling the story? Or Zane? Either of you? Yeah.
We've been treated like shit this entire time, and now's our time to finally stand up for ourselves and get what's deserved.
So is that like what White Lives Matter is all about?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because yeah, go ahead.
So Simney, tell me what White Lives Matter is all about to you.
So the White Lives Matter movement is really just about white people feeling like they haven't gotten equal representation in really anything, especially when it comes to like police brutality and things like that.
So are
and
you
feeling
are,
like
no, go ahead.
I'm pro White Lives. I'm pro White Lives Matter.
You are. So you're one of those, dude. There are a lot of black people who are not about White Lives Matter, my friend. You know what I mean? Because it's like, so hey, Tommy, how about you? Like, what are you seeing? What are you imagining? And then we'll go to Leah. What do you see? What do you observe? Like, what do you imagine? What are like some of the things that you?
As a bystander, just a quick question. Am I just speaking from?
Yeah, you can take any side you want. Yep.
Okay. Well, something that stuck out to me that you were talking about was that the Black people feel that everyone can make it in the system, basically. I thought that was a pretty interesting perspective because that's not the reality. And because if the Black people are at that stage and at that stage in the hierarchy, they of course will feel that everyone else can make it because they've never had to struggle like the white people.
So when you
that's
see,
one thing I see.
so when you see like Rachel, for example, is Rachel on the same plane as Kendrick? Like
In terms of
in her whiteness, you know what I mean? Because Kendrick's going to be like, hey, Rachel, just work. Go ahead. You got this. Work a little harder if you need to. How do you see that?
I see that as unfair.
Uh-huh. What's unfair about it?
It's unfair because they're two completely different levels of equality.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Hey, Leah, how about you? Is it Leah or Leah? I'll assume Leah.
It's Leia, yeah.
Yeah.
I see it as like a question of power, of like the Black people realizing that they were at a point where if they didn't like continue to oppress them, the white people could like gain more power and could have more power over them, and they didn't want to be in that situation. And the only way to avoid that was to continue to oppress like the white people, treat them the way that they did. Because there could have been like a revolt or a rising up. So it was just it was too late to turn back. In a sense, they had oppressed them for so long that the only way to maintain their power was to really continue to oppress them.
Yeah. And yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Hey, Rachel, is there a part of you that just really hates Black people? I mean, you know the story, you know the history, you've seen it. And then you know all these Black people just denying it or being like, slavery was over 100+ years ago. What are you complaining about? And just, you know, putting this part of you that just hates Black people.
I mean, I feel like it's not Black people in general. It's like the history that's there that they stand on, but I feel like it's not the people individually because I don't know, it's people's ancestors at this point. And
so do you know other white people that hate Black people?
Not personally.
I mean, we're still in this scenario.
Still in this mode. Yeah. I mean, no.
Yeah. All right. I would imagine you do. I would imagine Zane, you must know some white people that hate Black people.
Yeah, all my friends are like really pissed off because they subjugated all my ancestors to slavery.
Yeah, I could think it's really kind of hard not to just hate.
It's like I'm working against a system that is actively oppressing me.
Yeah, dude, it just goes on and on.
Doing it.
Here, let me go back to the story and then we're going to come back, right? I want to just update it. I'm going to go do this fairly quickly. So just hold tight and watch Twitch and I want to bring us up to date here. So I want to show what it is. So a lot of times like people will say like, hey, you know, Black people will in this, you know, we're going back into the thought experiment, right? Black people will say like, hey man, like, yeah, I'll just stop talking about the past. Like, let's get on with the present, right? So here, let me show you. In 1964, there was this movement this white civil rights movement that finally just took off because things got so bad for white. 47% of white families lived below the poverty line in the United States in 1964. And finally, things came to a head and there were white leaders that just made it happen. And there was this civil rights movement. But Black people, if we go to the next slide, fought against it. And they came out with their guns and their soldiers, Black guns and Black soldiers, just to put down white people who were just asking for basic civil rights after all these years. And then the people were killed. Lots of folks were killed. Lots of white people killed. I mean, just like it was just one after another. And it's just like the endless. And then Black people, here's what y'all did. Like, you also revolted. You also rioted in the streets. And why? So here's a photo of you all rioting. Why did you riot? Because the government made you allow white people to go to your schools. And you didn't even want white students, white young people to go to your schools, and you rioted. It's like, oh my God, you had these opportunities to maybe do something, and no, you're going to go out and riot in the streets because you don't even want white people to have this basic benefit that you would have. It's like, and then you go, next slide, you go to this like, we're all equal now. But, you know, we had this, so we've got this civil rights movement and everything's all equal. We have, you know, it's all good. Like, let's bring us up to gain, like, just so now white people quit complaining. It's like, stop complaining. Like, just get on with it, right? And we have equal chances. It's all done. We now have it into law. So let's show you some data. Here's the past. This is a really intense one. This is past change in household wealth, right? So this is everything people own, their retirement, their accounts, their homes, their cars, etc. And so here's Black people. So the blue is 1983. The red is 2013. This is everything that Black people own in 1983. Here's everything in 2013. Here's white people. Look at the difference. Look at this. It's like, look at the difference here. It's like, dude, white people have nothing compared to Black people. Y'all used your advantage to just really do amazing things. Go to the next slide. And here it is in the future. So the blue is 2013. So this is looking into the future. This is for the next 30 years. And the red is 2043. And look at how the wealth for white people skyrockets. This is household wealth, right? Median household wealth. And look for white people. Look at there. White people increase too. This is it. So all this talk, all the civil rights stuff, all the opportunities that supposedly white people are getting in this system from Black people, this is what it amounts to. Meaning that Black people are going to continue to hold on to all the wealth. It's like, this is an amazing system for Black people. Like, oh my God. And white people. And then you can still turn around and say, white people, why are you still complaining? What are you complaining about? Come on. We have equality here. Here, let me show you another one. Here's unemployment rates by race. Look at, as you can imagine, go to the next slide. Unemployment rates for white people are much higher over here than they are for Black people, of course. Like, why wouldn't they be? If we look at life expectancy by Ancestry, the next one, just look at this. Black people live longer than white people, of course, on average. I mean, it's one thing after another. Here's the photos that we see all the time. Here's this Black family, like in front of their beautiful Black home, their beautiful whatever home, stone home, right? And look at that. It's awesome, right? Here's another Black family just doing really well. Y'all like, killing it, happy. And here's the image we see of white people, an epidemic of white homelessness. We're always showing white homelessness on this. We're always dealing with white poverty. We're always dealing with this white underclass and not knowing what to do. And then blaming these people for their problem because it's about them. And we're seeing endless, why'd you have so many kids? Like, stop having kids, stop this, stop that, like whatever it is, right? Here's another one. Here's another, wait, there was another shot, I think. Wasn't there another photo, bro? Yeah. Yeah, here's then these questions that Black people are asking all the time. What do white people want? What do y'all want, man? So, here's these white people living, out of trailers and stuff. Like, there's endless poor. And yes, sure, there are some poor Black people, clearly, right? There are poor Black people, but many more poor white people. And these are the ones we're dealing with all the time. And what do you want? We've given you everything. Like, Black people are always saying, like, we've given you what you need. Just do it on your own. Like, make it happen on your own. And why you just keep like having problems here? Like, what's the issue, right? And so we can go, let's come back for a second. How about now? Like, how is that? Like, that it didn't just end. It's not just about the past. The past comes up to the present. And when you look at those data, for example, on wealth into the future and how Black people are going to continue to concentrate their wealth, and white people, there's all this pretend ideas that, there's equality here and you're going to all do really well. And there is for individuals, some people, but like the power is going to rest in the hands of Black Americans. And that's how it is. Any thoughts on that? How is that? How is that to see that, man? Anybody? How's that?
It's almost like Black people are trying to pretend that we are equal now and that all the fighting is done and that all the fighting for equality and being treated like people in the society is done, but it's not. It's far from over.
It would seem like that. It's like, let me ask some of the the Black people, right? How do y'all how do you justify that? Like Kendrick and Sydney, how do you justify that? How do you go to bed at night like that? How do you justify it?
Well, as a Black person, on top, I would say that once we've given you guys the freedoms, anything beyond that is kind of unfair. And I would argue that, playing devil's advocate, that in order to like giving you guys extra advantages, it's unfair to us and everything that my ancestors worked for. And so I feel like at some point, once we've given you all the freedoms that, the same freedoms as Black people have, giving you guys an extra advantage or taking away from the advantage that I already have is unfair. And so we should just leave things alone and let things run their course.
So it's like, it becomes like reverse discrimination or something like that, right? It's like unfair. They're like now starting to these white people are starting to take something from you. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, not only that, it's like, what do I as an individual really do to really combat this? Like, even if I did see that there wasn't justice going on within these communities and that Black people were actively keeping white people down by like policies and different like social standards, like how is it that I as an individual can really do this? Like, I don't think I can make an impact. I'm just here just trying to be me.
Right. You're trying to be you. You're trying to provide for your family. You're like that family with the little kids holding hands in the front of their house. Like, you just want that. Like, you didn't bring slaves over here. You didn't do any of that. How about somebody else? Zane, how about if we go, or Rachel, how about one of you? Like, how is that for you? Go ahead.
I appreciate that, Simney. Like, you're just doing your thing, trying to live your life. But there is a whole system working against me and my people that we're trying to work past, and that's still like active.
Yeah.
Is there anything I can do in particular to really if that is true, what exactly can I really do to stop that? Because it's one thing to really say that, and it's a completely different thing to implement that and really try and be part of the solution.
Dude, awesome question.
I don't know. Get in the streets, probably just protest, make it known that we want change.
Like Simney, have you probably, I can imagine you probably haven't been to a White Lives Matter rally recently. So like, why don't you could start there, dude. You know what I mean?
All right. Sounds like a plan.
Yeah. But that ain't going to do, whatever, at least it's something. Rachel, how about you? Like, what would you say? What would you want to say to, I don't know, just to wake Black people up to some of this stuff?
I feel like a lot of it is mindset. Like, a lot of people are set that the fight is over and that there's nothing else you can do. But it's more just waking up and realizing that there is a lot more fight left and making other people around you realize what, like, the difficulties other white people are going through.
Yeah, it's like you got to be willing to see the difficulties, right? Yeah, Leah or Tommy, how about you? Like, as people kind of on the outside, what are you noticing? What are you imagining?
I think I'm noticing, kind of similar to what I was saying before, like there's still some type of misunderstanding of your hierarchy. And I think what Leah was talking about, the power, like how the Black people were saying, basically, like, as soon as white people, these statistics are showing, as soon as white people get into the workforce, taking all these jobs, there won't be anything left for them.
Yeah.
But the reality is that the Black people won't ever, as much as they may feel threatened by that, they won't ever fully be threatened by that because of where they are and where they are in the hierarchy. So
that's a good point. Yeah, that's a really cool point. As much as you imagine and be threatened, they wouldn't be threatened. Hey, Leah, do you have something to yeah.
I guess I would say, like, I agree with what Tommy was saying. Like, I think that, like, the Black people won't change without them being prompted to change. And like what's happened in the last few years is like this movement of white people too that are, realizing that, like, they're sick of this and things have to change. So it's kind of sadly up for like the oppressed to make things change.
Yeah. Hey, yep, exactly. That's cool. I like that. Hey, let me just show you a couple more. I'm going to show you like 3 more quick slides, and then I want to come back on really fast because we have 10 minutes. Jeff, can you go to the half of Black Americans think slide? Go to that, and this takes us like right up to, in spite of all of this, all of the data that show endless, just consistent discrimination, racism, and prejudice by Black people against white people. Still, in the end, half of Black Americans think that anti-Black bias is worse than anti-white bias. Even in the end, y'all, like Black people, you still think that you have it worse. Half of you think that you have it worse than white people. Like the first off, just the audacity of that, but nonetheless, right? Go to the next slide, and then you do this stuff like just like this flag. Y'all like, why do y'all like fly this flag? You know what it represents. Like, why do you fly the flag? And like this guy here, you get this. Go to the next slide. This guy he's one of these Civil War reenactor guys. So this is one of these reenacting things. You see all the Confederate flags in the background. These are all Black people that come together to do this Civil War reenactment nonsense, like the very first slide that Jeff showed. Like you get to, Jeff, can you quickly go to, is that possible to go to that one, the very first slide of that Civil War reenact? This guy right here. Y'all like get together with these Civil War regalia and you pretend like you're fighting battles in the war. This is the battle to oppress, to keep your white slaves. Like, how do you do that? Who would think of this? Who would imagine that you're going to do this? And so you go back to this Andrew guy. He's like got these rallies going, man. Like, yeah, well, we're just out here. It's just all about our heritage. We don't hate white people. It's just our heritage. Like Black people. Okay, so can you come back on the screen for a second? Kendrick and Simney, can you explain that to us? Why do Black people do that stuff?
I would say that it's because in the end, our people, they came over and they created great wealth in the South because of agriculture, and they built great, empires. And so to forget about our flag and forget about the war would be basically essentially negating everything that our ancestors worked for.
Yeah. It wouldn't seem like it'd have to be that way. Simney, is that like, do you really have to do that? Like, do you got to stick it in the faces of white people? Like, because that's what you're doing.
Even if I'm not sticking in the faces of white people, for me, it's like, I just have a long lineage of like people who've like celebrated like different holidays around with the flag. Like I have a couple of uncles who always come over like every couple of months, and like these are just things that they're proud of. So like through kind of growing up in that environment, that's something that I've grown proud of myself, and I don't necessarily associate that flag with the hatred that was kind of brought up that white people feel, but it's just kind of something that I've grown around and I've grown accustomed to. So I don't necessarily think that those things like kind of have to converge in that way.
So, okay, here, now I'm going to give you an opportunity. So Rachel or Zane or Ben, can one of you like explain to Simney that when his uncles show up with the flag, maybe he could have a different, what's it mean to you? What do you all see in that?
That flag fought to continue to oppress my ancestors. So it's not good.
No matter how you might explain or justify the reason for flying that flag, it still holds that idea of us being slaves and you being better than us.
Yeah, it's like not only that, but it like, Rachel, what do you see when you see that flag?
Yeah, I would just say that although it might not have an effect on you and it represents pride for you, it represents a lot of devastation and sadness for us white people.
Yeah. I was going to say that. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it represents like all of the power, man, the power, the death, the destruction. There's just so much that's every day. And the everyday stuff that white people experience, even like using words like oppressors, right? Referring to Black people as the oppressor, right? And talking about white people talking about being marginalized and being oppressed, and then black people are like, well, you don't have to use those words. You're not, like, come on, man. Then like,
but my thing is like it's like, not only do I grow up with like the people around me, I also have a lot of white friends, and I feel like if like that was that big of an issue, they would have said something to me.
So they probably, you imagine they would, yeah.
Another point that I would say is that no one says, those same things about the American flag or the British, the British Jack, which both of which can, in a certain light, be seen as symbols of colonialism or, destruction by a certain group of people. And so if all flags can essentially be, pinpointed to this negative thing, why do we have to look at my flag in a specifically negative light?
Well, listen, Kendrick, if you weren't black, you might actually understand that other places in the world do not like people flying the US flag because it signifies imperialism, oppression, and bloodshed of their people. But you as a black guy, you're probably less likely to see that. Zane and Ben and Rachel probably know that because they're probably more connected to cultures around the world where the US has invaded with black soldiers and imposed US culture on them. But you don't see that. So that's part of the privilege of being black in this system. Hey, so Leah and Tommy, what are you observing in this the final few minutes here? What do you observe in that? Anything at all? You can go, really, anyone can let their minds go anywhere at this point, but yeah. If you have something, if you don't, it's all good.
What I was observing, I was just thinking about what Sam의 was talking about how, it's just another holiday that they're celebrating. You're just, having people over. It's not that big of a deal. And the way I view it is that there's two sides to every story. And the side that Black people are looking at is the glorified veterans version. But the other side that is very prominent is the bloodshed and the cost at which all of that came to pass. And at the end of the day, the South didn't even win. So
yeah,
I'm just saying. But anyway,
at the very least, it's a flag that represents losing. So it's like there's nothing victorious about it. Leah, do you have any thoughts?
I don't know. I kind of think that in a way no one will ever come to an agreement when it comes to the Confederate flag because both sides have a different idea of what it represents. And I think for the Black people, no amount of just trying to justify it makes it for them to fly around, but there will never be an agreement because they just don't. Each side doesn't see how the other person.
Yeah, really, yes, exactly. Yeah, you really have to, this is the empathy piece, right? You really have to step out of your space and into the spaces. Hey, I'm going to turn my camera on really fast. Well, actually, here, I'm going to turn my camera on really fast just so they can see me. No, maybe I'm not. Doesn't look like I am. Okay. Hey, we have 2 questions. Go ahead. All right, hang on. I'm gonna respond to a couple questions. Is the info being flipped on the quiz? Oh, I don't know. The info will just be the true. No, it will not be flipped on the quiz. The info is just the true. We're gonna write the questions in such a way that. But all the info is real, my friends. It's all real. We'll just refer to a. Yeah, white people have it nice. While me, as an European, had also to deal with colonialism by African countries and post-colonialism, which was worse. Yeah, dude. Yeah. So if we keep this scenario going, we're only talking about, if we were to take this, we're only talking about the Americas. We're not even talking about European. I could do the whole thing with Europe and look at African colonialism in Europe. Someday I'll do that. I'll do one of these in Europe and make it happen. I'd love to do it in Belgium, for example, and talk about the Congo. So anyway, y'all, I think that, so we're done with I'm going to come out of the the scenario now, but it seems to me that this is just a way to take ourselves out of our space and put ourselves in somebody else's space and in somebody else's shoes, to just maybe see some things that sometimes different scenarios or different perspectives can be really difficult to see or difficult to understand or difficult. I don't know, maybe there's even an emotional or an intellectual, just sort of a wall to seeing certain things that I think like kind of what would be like a perspective taking exercise like this can be really valuable, and just being able to get outside of ourselves and see something a little bit different.
Yo,
So
can I say something to white people?
Yep.
So white people, I'm white. I can speak to you, I guess. Don't be offended by this lesson. We've done this lesson before in the past, and sometimes white people get the thought that we're angry at white people or that we hate white people. We are not debating if something should or should not have happened. We're talking about the history that actually happened, flipping it, so that we can look at this through a different perspective than how we've grown up. As a history buff, this is really, really, really cool for me. So please watch this class again if you didn't get it. Watch it without the chat, and you might actually get a lot from what we went over today.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, for me, I always really get something out of it, like when I do things like this, because it really takes me to another place of understanding. So anyway, people, if you could pop Peeps back on the screen for a hot second. Just thanks for coming. Thanks for participating. I really appreciate you jumping on the stream, and Lily and I'll get the quiz together. And I think Thursday's class is going to be pretty cool. I think we have a guest coming in. I think it's going to be cool. I'm looking forward to it. Okay, y'all. See you. Peace. Thanks once again to the volunteers. Thank you for volunteering.